There we go. Can you?
Hello? Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, nice.
Okay, we got it finally.
Awesome. How are you, Pam?
I'm doing pretty good.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Yeah. You're in somewhere down in Texas?
Yeah, Houston, Texas.
Okay. How's everything down there?
It's nice.
Yeah, I've been to Houston before. I've got a good friend that lives there. So
Oh, yeah?
anyway,
You know what part?
I do not know. She's lived all over the world and she recently moved there. So I'm not exactly sure what part. I haven't visited her there yet. So
Mm. Where are you located?
uh, uh, where do I live?
Yeah.
Oh, I live in Kansas,
Oh,
in Lawrence, Kansas, where the University of Kansas is.
nice. I've been to Kansas City, Missouri, but
Oh yeah, I'm not far
haven't
from
made the way
there.
to Lawrence yet.
Yeah,
I love it there. It's such a homey
yeah,
place.
yeah.
But as we were talking a little bit on the phone, yeah, it's a podcast, but it's also kind of my own interviews of sorts because I love talking with people like yourself from different authors or leaders in psychology or fitness to help further my own understanding about all this stuff and also share it as I go.
Well, awesome.
Cool. So we can get started, and I, because it's not live, I'll go through and kind of edit it and share it with you when it's finished.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. Pam Grout, thank you for joining on today.
Hey, glad to be here.
I'd love to start with hearing a little bit about your background and what all led to your interest and passion and the rising of kind of confidence to write all these various books and your most popular E Squared and so on.
Well, I've always been a writer. In fact, I mean, from the time I was in second grade, I was always a writer. That's what I like to do. I was a reader. I read lots of books. I think in second grade, they gave me a little award, for reading 256 books. And so as soon as, you start reading a lot, you start thinking, well, I wonder if I could do that. And that's kind of how I, got into being a writer. I'm very lucky. I've only been a writer. That's all I ever wanted to do from the time I was a kid. I, went to school for journalism. I went to college for journalism, got a degree, worked for a newspaper for a while. And at the same time I was doing that, I was always sending out query letters, trying to write for other publications. I wanted to write about the stuff, that was burning in my heart. So just started writing, articles. I write for lots of different magazines, and then I write for, these 20 books that I have out. But anyway, it's just kind of I guess my life's purpose and what I've always been doing.
What led you to seek more about the spiritual kind of truths and to write like E Squared is really about nine energy experiments, and what kind of led to your awareness that our thoughts control reality? And
Well,
I'm
I've used those principles a lot in my own life, to launch my writing career. And I've always been interested in that. And the thing about being a writer is whatever you're interested in, you want to write about it. So I would get an assignment. Like if there was a place I wanted to visit, I'm also a travel writer. I would get an assignment to write about somewhere, say Turkey, and then I'd go to Turkey or whatever. So and then I eventually, was really interested in spiritual, metaphysical things. So I decided that I would write a book about this. And I feel like the reason I wrote E Squared is it's a lot of principles that people are familiar with. Our thoughts create a reality, asking you to receive. I mean, that goes way back to the Bible days. But I think a lot of people know them in theory and they don't actually put them into practice. So when I wrote E Squared, the whole idea was here's a format, a formula. You can use 48-hour experiments. There's even lab report sheets. So I set it up like a science
yeah,
experiment. And it gave people a reason to do this and to really test it out and see it with their own two eyes. Because, if you learn about something, that's one thing. But if you
yeah.
see proof, if you actually see it happening, working in your own life, then you get, wow, this stuff really works. And then you're more apt to stick with it. I guess that's the whole idea, is that people would stick with these spiritual
Yeah.
principles.
No, and I love that myself, especially I think when I first reached out to you, there were a couple of the experiments that I really resonated with that really helped especially during times where, when you overthink things, or as you put in the book, it's like we're trying to cut the grass with toenail clippers.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things I'm curious about is how do you really help with, and it sounds like when I looked into your newest book about the rewiring the brain, or the mind, really the process of that. How do you develop the confidence to experiment more with one's life? Because, like you said, um, it's we have to practice it, and the experiments here are 48-hour challenges, and relatively they're I don't want to say smaller, but like it's getting a cup of coffee as opposed to a travel abroad.
Oh, right. Well, I think in the course of 48 hours, it's good to start small, to start with little experiments. That way, it kind of builds your muscle. And I think as once you start recognizing, wow, this does work, what I'm thinking about really is influencing the world out there, then it gives you confidence to go for those bigger things. So, I mean, I suggest it's just as easy to do, to manifest, a button as a castle, as
Yeah,
Esther Hicks used to
yeah,
say, or somebody said that. I don't remember
yeah.
who
I
said
think it
that.
was.
But the fact is, we have a lot of thoughts saying that it's hard to manifest a castle. So, as I always say, the word hard is the most dangerous four-letter word in the English language, because if you think something's hard and if that's your mindset, that's the way you believe it, then it's going to be hard for you. So, I think, again, that's one of the advantages of doing these experiments. You start realizing, wow, this can happen. And then it just becomes, you're more open to that as a possibility. So basically it's a way of just kind of dipping your toes in the water, and then hopefully you build on that and you keep trying bigger and bigger things and using it more and more in your
Yeah.
life, and recognizing that every thought, is creating an energy force, and it is going out into the world.
So then I'm curious. So it's like what you said, it's building the muscle. So then so in the experimentation and starting off and continuously building the skill, you're able to get some things. Let's say somebody starts out quickly, or starts out relatively small, just training, and they're able to get the free cup of coffee, and which I've done a couple times. And then you slowly want to build to grander scale things, and that doesn't happen, and that usually can deter somebody from continuing, myself included at some times. However, I have continuously pursued at it. So what kind of things can you suggest, or that are necessary or helpful during that process? Because there's then, if something doesn't manifest, then there's some kind of emotional barrier, emotional ceiling there that needs to be broken through.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all contributing to the energy force. So it's not like, we just say something and then boom, like that, it happens, although that often does happen. But there's a lot of forces that are at play here. But one of the things, I wrote a book, I wrote E Squared, and then I wrote the follow book, E Cubed, that had 10 more experiments for people to try. And then after that, I wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich, which is a takeoff on Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, because a lot of it is getting on a particular resonant field. And when you're in a resonant field of gratitude, things happen a lot easier. So you're not always looking at the problems, what's not happening. You're focusing on all the beauty. And at that point, really, things just open up for you, and it just becomes a whole lot easier, or you're just more aware of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the most important things, is to really, first of all, make it easy. Don't make it into a big deal. Play with it. People say, I'm working so hard at doing this. I'm following these 7 steps. Well, that is the wrong attitude to approach it with. It's best to go, I'm just going to play around with this. I'm just going to experiment, have fun. Literally, like, think of it like a playground, and just play with the experiments. And again, I think the best way to get into that resonant field is to practice gratitude. I mean, literally every day, become really present at the moment. And a good way to do that is with gratitude, and start thinking about what all you do have instead of thinking about what you don't have, and just be grateful for every single little thing. And, you talked about the little cup of coffee. Well, that's little if you decide it's little. I mean, that could be a huge idea. So when you're more in gratitude, you're just appreciative of all the stuff, all the miracles that are happening all the time.
And a lot of it is what we're focusing on, what our focus on expands. So how do you, that's also kind of a skill to build. in E squared, meditation isn't emphasized as much, but when it comes to uh, like your friend wanting getting a free ski trip or something, and you kind of touched upon it, like the aligning with a higher level of gratitude. How do you, what tools do you emphasize or kind of also get into writing about to really help get into there much easier? Because there are different uh, things that go on and experiences that kind of make you feel a little bit less, a little bit heavier.
Well, again, I think people try to make it harder than it really is. I
Yeah.
mean, the big thing is getting in the present moment. You mentioned meditation. I think that's a really great way of, training your mind to be more in the present. So I think meditation is a real powerful practice. I suggest that for everybody. Um, well, mindfulness, anything like that. And then gratitude. I mean, I have a little practice. I call it my AA 2.0 program. And I talk about a lot in Think and Grow Rich, but there's the 12-step program, the AA 12-step program, and I'm all about smooth and easy. So the AA 2.0 program is, there's 2 simple steps. You get up first thing in the morning, you go, something amazingly awesome is going to happen to me today. So you're
Yeah.
like setting that intention, something really great's going to happen. So, and that's why I call it AA. It may not be grammatically perfect, but it's, it's like amazingly awesome. I've since switched it up to extraordinarily epic, and I've got it, throughout for the whole alphabet. But so you say that, and the second thing I do is I have what I call my possibility posse, and so I literally send them 3 blessings from the day before. And unlike some gratitude practices, where you just kind of repeat the same old things you're grateful for, you have to find something new each day to be grateful for. That's our practice in my little possibility posse. So you're literally on the lookout all day for things to be grateful for, things to notice, things to be appreciative of. And when you start putting your attention there, then that's when everything is going to open up for you, because your attention is on all the miracles, all the beauty, and you're seeing it everywhere, because that's what you're looking for. Whatever we animate into our life, whatever we put our attention upon, right? So if we put our attention upon all the problems that are happening, then we're going to get more of that. If we put our attention on things we're grateful for, even the little things like the little cups of coffee, the
Yeah.
little whatever, then that is going to be animated into your life. It's literally like that old computer game, those old computer games where you click on something and that comes to life. That is like that. When what we put our attention on, that comes to life for you. We're connected to everything anyway in the big quantum field. And so which level are we going to stay in? What level are we going to hang out in? We can hang out in the doom and gloom level. We can hang out in the life is miraculous level. There's all these different levels, and we're connected to all of them, but which one are we going to hang out in? And so I think it's, for me, that it's more fun to hang out in the isn't that amazing
Yeah.
level.
I'm with you. Thank you for sharing. Do you think that because it's similar to kind of building a skill, um, a lot of like our thoughts, like or different habitual patterns, are really deep rooted in some individuals, so it may take a little bit longer. Like, and that's where meditation really helped. How can you, like, how can we encourage ourselves, or what knowledge is necessary to continue through it, especially for some that have perhaps a really deep rooted um, habitual reactions to things or to certain thoughts?
Well, it's really is just like one day at a time, or even
Mhm.
one moment at a time, to break those habitual patterns. They've learned now with brain science that we can change our neural pathways. And as you said, a lot of these things are deeply rooted and they are habits, and we've been doing them for a long time, but we now know that it is possible to change those. And
Yeah.
that's an important thing to recognize, that it can be changed. You can train how your mind thinks.
Hmm.
And what I believe is that once you get rid of all the negative patterns, a lot of things that that our culture teaches us to do, and what's left is the joy and is the peace, and that is our true reality, our true nature. But we're so accustomed to
Yeah.
these other ways of being that we literally have created these neural pathways that look out for the negative things. And so that's just a very strong dominant pattern in our culture. We've all drunk the cultural Kool-Aid, once you start, opening your mind a little bit, you start seeing more of the miracles, that there is a whole new way of being. One of the things that's happened for me since I wrote Each Squared is people will send me their synchronicity stories, their miracle stories. So I get all these stories from people that are really fun. And they often start with, "You are never going to believe this." And of course, I do believe it, because that's what I preach, so to speak. So anyway, that's been a lot of fun. It's really cemented my belief in these principles, because I literally hear these gorgeous stories all the time. I mean, ranging from I don't know, just little things like grandma's ring that they'd lost 2 years ago shows up on the front stoop. They've been looking and looking for this, and there it is, right there on the little mat, and it happened to have been gone for 2 years. So, those kind of things, to, people manifesting millions of dollars. So all kinds of things I hear from people. Anything is possible, except for what we've set up in a paradigm that doesn't work. And that's really the problem. We're all worried about what doesn't work. And we've learned about what, how things are and how miserable everything is. And so that's all we're going to see. So we have to really let go of all those lessons that we've been taught and just open up to the magic.
It's definitely a process. And what I appreciate, and I think which experiment was it with, I have kind of my notes next to me, but the experiment about asking for inner guidance, more so kind of getting out of our analytical brain so much. And
right, we spend a lot of time analyzing things. I don't know if you've read any of the, like the Eckhart Tolle books or any of those. He talks a lot about being in the moment, because, that's all we ever are. We can't be anywhere else. We can pretend to be somewhere else. We can think about being somewhere else, but when we're really in the moment, that's when, again, all the miracles and magic start showing up, because that's where it happens. That's where it is.
You bring up a great point. Could you help clarify, when we have like that combined with what you focus on expands? So say I have a intention that I'm hoping to materialize, such as working alongside a mentor with certain details, getting very clear. And throughout the day, you want to continue that focus and, oh man, I'm just so excited to, because you want to focus on how amazing that's going to be, while also being completely in that present moment.
Right. Well, all we really have is this present moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's really what we have. Now, we think we have all these other things, but and in fact, one of the things I've often said is I don't even do that much intention setting anymore, because I so trust that what the universe has to offer me, its gifts and its truth are so much better than anything I could come up with. So the more I'm in the moment, allowing that to happen, the better my life is, because a lot of times intentions I might think that I want may not be exactly what's for my best or what I really want. So I guess my highest intentions are to, find the joy, find the peace, find the light. There's light in everything, and I want to find the light in everything, and then let the universe dish up for me, what it thinks is for my good, what it thinks is the best thing.
So in a sense, kind of just a greater sense of surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I really like that a lot. One of the things I found interesting, I was listening to a couple podcast interviews you were on yesterday, and re-listening to your TED Talk, is about writing. And I find I journal every day. I write every day. It's the getting to sharing it. I really appreciate, you mentioned, I don't know if it was on a podcast interview or the TED Talk, but actually it was a study about pottery. And
oh yeah, that's in my book, Art and Soul. Have you read that book?
I have not.
Okay, I wonder where else
Pam, there's a bunch of books of yours that I haven't.
Yeah, but I think I
really
talk about that pottery one in the book Art and Soul. Mm-hmm. So I don't know where you might have seen that. Maybe I talked about that somewhere in a talk or something. Uh-huh. Or are you talking about the mirror? So I did talk about that
That
in my
one,
TED
I
Talk.
think that one was on the, I remember now, that one was on
That's
the
in the
TED
TED
Talk.
Talk, yeah.
But you were on an interview with Inspire Nation, I think it was called, back in 2017 or 18. And you mentioned how actually the more quantity we put out, the better quality is. There was a study that and I'm sure you
Yeah.
go into more detail in the book, but could you touch a little bit upon that? Because I think that really helps me, because I'm in a process of writing a book. I love writing. I journal every day, so I have that habit. But there's something that's like I'm not sharing it every day, or at least all of
Yeah. Okay. I know the story you're talking about, and I maybe did tell that to Michael Sandler on Inspire Nation. I don't remember that, but I very likely might have. But there was a pottery teacher, and it was like a college pottery class, and so he would divide his students into two groups. And one group, he gave an assignment for the semester. You are going to spend your entire time working on this one perfect piece of pottery. I mean, just spend all your time. You've got the whole semester. Make it perfect. That was their assignment. The other group, the other half, he says, I just want you to create something new every day. Just keep creating as many things as you can. There's no expectation, but it would be like, I'll give you permission, just create as many things. You're going to try to do as many as you possibly can. Well, in the end, what he found out is those that were encouraged to just keep going, do as many as they can, their quality was actually even better than those that had been focusing on the quality, because they were just doing it again and again and again. So it is that practice of being there. Like for me with writing, it's being there for the muses, because I like to believe that there's something bigger coming through me when I'm writing.
Yeah.
I'm actually surrendering to this voice, the story that wants to be told by the universe to the people out there. So I'm just so if I show up every day, then the muses go, oh, she's serious about this. She really can be trusted. I will give her the good stuff. I'll give her a great story to share with the world, because they've got all kinds of stories, projects, things they want to give to the world. And so they're going to have no choice but to go with the person that's going to show up day after day. So yeah, I think that's a really brilliant story. And I do write about that in Art and Soul, and I guess that's probably where I talk about it with Michael Sandler on Inspire Nation, if that's where you heard it.
So would it apply to publishing, like on blogs as well? Is that how you started with your blogging?
Oh no, I had been a writer for a long time. I was a journalism major, so I used to write for a newspaper. I've written lots of articles for magazines, a lot of, because I didn't start blogging until E Squared came out. Of course, that was my 16th book. And Hay House sent me a book called Platform, and they said, here's how to create a tribe or a list. They always talk about creating a list or whatever. So they sent me this book called Platform by Michael Hyatt. I mean, they FedExed to me. They made it seem really important. So I read it, and it's talked about blogging daily. And I thought, blogging daily? I write for a living. Why am I going to blog daily? But I went ahead and I thought, well, if they think this is really important, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So I started blogging, and it turns out I really liked it. So I started blogging long after I was already a writer. But it's the same principle. The more you write, the easier it becomes. At first you're going to write stuff you don't like, and then you just stick with it, and eventually it just gets easier, and you start liking it more and more, and it gets better.
Post those?
What's that?
Would you still post those? Like if you're posting a blog daily, but you don't necessarily have an editor or somebody to review it. You kind of treat it maybe like a social media post, and you're posting daily?
Oh, when I was blogging daily, I'm not really blogging daily right now, but that's what I did, with E Squared. Yeah, I mean, I just did it. I just feel like, hey, here's an offering. It's free to the world. Whoever wants to read it can read it. So yeah, I guess I did do it with that editor. I tend to be, sometimes I do it too fast, and maybe there might be a little mistake, but I'm pretty good at editing myself. But again, you can't be thinking about that. You're just thinking about writing. I mean, if you need an editor, you definitely should have an editor. But I'm pretty good. With my blog posts, I don't really have an editor. I just write them myself. But I do occasionally have people will say, hey, we noticed you spelled this word wrong or whatever. So I mean, it does happen. But I'm not doing it to be perfect. As I said in my TED Talk, perfection is the enemy of the people. My philosophy is dare to be mediocre. And not that I want to be mediocre, but you have to give up that perfectionism, because if you want to be perfect, you'll get stuck. You won't do anything. You have to be willing to make mistakes. You have to be willing to dive in. You have to be willing to do things imperfectly. That's the only way possible to get through it.
Nice. I think that really helps me a lot with sharing more of my own writing and like podcasts like these. When it comes to um, creating kind of intention and getting clear on it, as you have in the experiment um, was it not the Albie Einstein, but the Dear Abby, the one where you get specific on something that you
Yeah,
want
that's the Dear Abby experiment.
how detailed do you like to get, where it's a nice balance of intention where you're clear on the intention and surrender where you can let go?
Like I said, I don't do as much of intending anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
But I sort of like the philosophy. I don't know if you're familiar with Mike Dooley, but he has a philosophy where he does it for 5 minutes in the morning. I thought, that's probably just the right amount of time, to really get into the feeling space for 5 minutes. And really, he's a friend of mine. He kind of helped me when I first started doing speaking. And I do think I love that philosophy of the 5 minutes a day. That's probably all you need, because if you go longer than that, then you start going, well, how am I going to do it? I would say, how's not up to me. You just, what is up to you? And then the how is left to the universe. Let the universe, haggle with the details.
What's the 5 minute teaching that you have?
Just for 5 minutes, you focus on you kind of see a picture of yourself doing that thing that you want, like whatever your intention might be. Say you want to, like at one point, I talked about this in East Squared, I wanted to go to Australia because this guy I had a crush on, was going to Australia. So I decided I wanted to go there. So, I just see myself in the Sydney surf, just see myself running into the ocean or whatever. And then within a couple of days, my editor at Modern Bride called and said, hey, we need an article on Australia. Would you be willing to go there? And I'm like, okay. So anyway, that's, but so it's just for 5 minutes, you spend your time seeing yourself in whatever situation you want to be in, and you really try to feel it. Like if you have a favorite coffee cup, we keep going back to this coffee thing. See hold that coffee cup in your vision, like so it kind of plants you to where you are. But so, like I said, I don't do that much intending and visualizing anymore. Again, I have so much faith in what the universe brings me that I just sort of let that be. But that is that 5-minute thing that Mike Dooley talks about. I think that's as good as any. I can give you that one.
In one of the whoppers, like at the myths at the beginning of the book, it mentioned you can't ask for too much, but if you're intending too much, like I just contradicted what I said, but if you're intending several times, is that a sign of lack of trust, perhaps?
Well, you really only need to do it if you do it fully with great intention, and with great love and great passion. That should be enough, and maybe to keep asking is like you just act like it's already here. Just act as if it's already here. Just pretend that it's already happened. I mean, you're creating the space for it to already be here.
Yeah.
You're not looking for it anymore. It's here, and you're acting as if it's here. You're acting like the traveler you want to be, or the millionaire you want to be, or the whatever it is you want to be. You're acting just like that. You're being that.
Awesome. Did when it came to things that you perhaps really wanted, something that you really, really desire, like when it's something that you have it's like you have the pleasant kind of indifference, it's a lot easier for it to come, because it's easier to kind of be in alignment with it. But when it comes to something that you really, really want, how I'm sure it's similar process or similar alignment to expand into, but do you have any tips or suggestions to really help with that? Because we can get really attached, or we can get really attached to wanting one thing or another type of thing.
Yeah, the less you get attached, the better. The more you can let go of it, and just, again, make it fun. Have fun with it. Play around with it. Be like a little kid. Little kids don't sit there and, oh, my little Lego tower doesn't look right. It's not the way I want it to be. So, you just have fun and play
Yeah.
around with it and start noticing every little thing that kind of looks like your intention. You start really paying attention to everything that's sort of in the right vicinity of where you want to be, what you're going for.
Awesome. I love it. We kind of touched upon it earlier, that when things kind of get challenging, you really have to connect more with like, what are you grateful for, what's been into, and how you'll be in that, as if it's already here, or as if you're already that person. Hmm.
Right, right.
Could you touch a little bit upon your new book and what it's about? It sounded very interesting when I came across it.
Yeah, I've been a student of A Course in Miracles. It's a 365 lesson. Well, it has 3 sections, but one of the main sections is the workbook, and it's 365 lessons. And I go through this every year. I start on January 1st with lesson 1, and I go through it. And it's kind of a complex book. It's really thick. It's a lot of people call it the doorstop. You ask it in spirit together, who has the Course in Miracles? And everybody raised their hand, literally, like 100% of the people, 99% at least, will have owned the book. But then you go forth and you say, well, how many have actually read it? And all hands go down. There's like literally 2 or 3 people that have read it. I mean, it's hard. It's dense. And so in January of 2018, I started blogging about my own journey in Course in Miracles. Like I said, I do this every year, year after year after year. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, you make it, I can understand it now. This makes sense. You need to turn this into a book. And so, talk about guidance. I mean, after like 100 people tell you, or you get all these emails and people make comments, you need to turn it into a book. I thought, okay, I guess I'll turn it into a book. So I sent it off to my editor at Hay House, and sure enough, they decided to turn it into a book. So what it is, it's my translation. I mean, another name for it, like the back part of it says, A Course in Miracles, the fun version, because again, I'm all about, making it fun. If it's not fun, it's not sustainable. So it originally was called Course in Miracles for Badasses, because again, I like the fun, the idea,
Yeah.
but they didn't want to call it that. They called it the Course in Miracles Experiment, because my experiment books were so popular, but it's not really an experiment. It's more about doing the things that it says to do each day, and it's like really changing your thinking, rewiring your mind, and therefore the world. That's the subtitle. A starter kit for rewiring your mind and therefore the world. Because once you rewire your mind, your world starts changing. And that's what Course in Miracles is all about. It's like getting rid of all that stuff, all the untruths, all the illusions that everybody lives in, and getting to the truth where spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, can get through. So Course in Miracles is my translation of this really heavy duty book that's been around since I think the 70s. It's about a 40, 50-year-old book. It's been around for a while. A lot of teachers have written books about it. I don't know if you're familiar with Marianne Williamson. She's written a lot of books. She's a teacher of A Course in Miracles. So anyway, I've been following it for a long time. Didn't think of myself as a teacher of A Course in Miracles, but then again, so many people asked me, they liked how I was talking about it. So that's why I ended up, doing this book. So I cover all 365 lessons in the workbook.
Wow.
In the book, and it tells, I do it like I always do, fun little quote, and I write in kind of fun language to make it more understandable, and then I ask people, to go through it. So that's basically what the new book is. It came out in January of 2020. So yeah, it's my latest offering to the world out there.
Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate all the different experiments, all the different examples in the experiments, and like your own with traveling and writing abroad. It's something I definitely desire and intend to do, but I think more vertically than horizontally. And because I just love that idea, like you shared. So traveling is so much fun, and to really, I also am a big lover of languages, and to really just immerse oneself in the different cultures, compete in the different sporting competitions, learning the languages or the culinary arts, and then also practicing, and also working there, like whether it's writing or whatever. There's so many different possibilities. And when I read that, it was very reassuring or reinforcing. And, like that and all the different other experiments, it's like I mentioned earlier, it's very, what's right? It's like, it's very touching and meaningful because sometimes the process of the rewiring can take some time. And so it's really learning to fall in love with that, or of that process. Because like myself, there are perhaps some emotions or habits that are easily rewired, but the more you rewire, the closer to the surface ones, the deeper ones start to rise. And so it does get a little bit more challenging. And that's why I asked earlier about, some people, you can have spontaneous remissions, with different changes, but other people, it may take some time. And whether it's your book and starting, with the 48-hour experiments, or I'm a big fan of Joe Dispenza, and practicing with the different intentions, or tuning into new potentials, all of it really helps. And another big thing that really helped me was a meditation retreat, because I had like a nail biting habit growing up as a kid. And so to be able to, observe and stop the thought that led to the response to bite the nails, and to be able to step back and slowly rewire that, it's a whole new world.
Oh, that's great. Well, congratulations. So through meditation, you were able to give up that habit?
Well, slowly over time, it's like opening Pandora's box.
Uh-huh.
So once you first start out, it's like, oh my goodness, but it's like a roller coaster. Then everything starts rising. So
Mm-hmm.
like over the time, like I started with, it'll be 2 years this September since I started really diving into like Joe Dispenza and all his meditations and all of that. That was a big force, or big proponent that really started it. A huge help was I went to this 10-day meditation retreat, and that was really just observing and kind of observing things as they are, and not reacting to them. And that really helped with breaking a habit or releasing a habit. And practicing the different experiments you have. So I definitely am a big fan of meditation and combining it with these. That's why also a lot of the questions I had were about like quote unquote larger scale. I know we also touched about it. That's really a subjective decision, larger or smaller scale, but the more detailed things. So
Yeah.
kind of
Now,
went
was
on a
your
rant
10-day
there.
meditation a Vipassana meditation?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about that. I've been really intrigued by Vipassana meditation most recently. Who was your teacher? Where was your retreat?
It was this 10-day silent meditation retreat in Kaufman, Texas. And a friend told me about it. And, I really like it because it's non-sectarian. There's no religious
Right.
affiliation in it. And I come from a Jewish background. So there's a lot of that kind of, whether it's guilt or fear of praying idols.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
I found it very helpful, very soothing, because like I mentioned a couple times now, you once you rewire one thing, they called it sankhara, which is like a deep rooted emotional habit. Once you release kind of one, it just rises more things to the surface, which, if we want to get to current events, seems to be what's happening in our world now.
Yeah,
Everything's
lots of
rising to the surface.
opportunities for
Huh?
sure. Well, I recently read Yuval Harari's work, a couple of his books, Sapiens, and then the 21 whatever for the 21st century.
Yeah.
And he talked so much about meditation and the Vipassana particularly. So that's kind of what got me really intrigued with it.
Yeah.
And, I love that what he said. It's like, how was I going to do anything if I couldn't even have control of my mind? You know what I mean? And he was shocked he really does attribute the Vipassana meditation
Mhm.
for this great success he's had with all of his different books, and it's enabled him to write that and to have the concentration to do the kind of
Yeah,
research and everything that he's done. So, anyway, I've always been a big meditator, but after reading his books, it's like, okay, I'm going to check into
really
the
good.
Vipassana. So when you said 10-day or night, whatever you said, like that's
Uh,
got to be the same thing because I think
it's
that's their
intense.
standard.
It's intense, and I found it very, there's so many different teachers and information so readily available. This meditation or that meditation. It's like it could also get very overwhelming for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I found it very, like I mentioned, I really love Joe Dispenza's meditations, or what Mind Valley has at different meditations. So I found this one, it's also a mindset switch in that they're not different. They all complement each other.
Hmm.
So when I learned really this approach, this meditation's technique, it really complemented the other things, because it's one of the biggest parts of it is awareness and then equanimity of mind. So when I had, per se, I mean, I can use my own experience the best because I experienced it, but with biting my nails or something, there would be, you'd have a certain thought and then there would be a sensation on the body. And normally you would react to that sensation, or habitually we would react to that sensation like, oh my God, I have, my hands are getting purple. I got to go see the doctor.
Yeah.
But it's really just the sensations rising to the surface, and that combined, and you don't want to judge that. So that's where the equanimity comes in, because you're just observing it. It's pleasant or it's unpleasant. It's not good or bad. So that's a whole other
Yeah. Well,
conversation.
that's great. Well, good for you that you did that because I'm thinking about doing one myself. So anyway,
You
thanks for
suggest,
the preview.
of course. Well, Pam, it's been a real pleasure, and like I mentioned, um, it's during the whole process being able to speak with yourself. It's one in itself. It's a wonderful synchronicity. It's wonderful pleasure to learn from those that are helping me and hopefully others on the different on the journeys, and through that rewiring process,
Yeah.
as we touched on. And I'm looking forward to diving into all the different other books you've written. But thank you so much. It really means a lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Solomon, and good luck with everything.
Yeah, and I'll be in Kansas City in November, so perhaps I can drive to Lawrence and we can.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again.
Okay.
Have a wonderful day.
All right. You too. Bye bye.
Bye.